all you need to know is I made Slimer. Can we move on now? Because that's all I want to hear. I made Slimer. I do special makeup effects. I've done 200 movies. All of the favorite rock videos you've seen, theme park animatronics, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So yeah, come on, Google me. I don't need to. I made notes. Look, I made notes. We've discussed every category of monsters on my notes. What else do you want from me? But there's no other monsters left to talk about.
There's plenty of monsters.
Aliens. We talked about devils. We talked about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We talked about the creatures in Black Lagoon. We talked about vampires. We talked about werewolves. There's no other categories.
All right, well, we got 10 minutes left, so.
With 10 minutes left. We've been going for 45 minutes. All right, well, I'm going to pour another glass of wine then. Why don't you go on? Keep your viewers entertained.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeon of Deadly Delights. My name is Robert DiLauro. Thank you so much for joining me again. And again, we've got a special interview for you this week. It's not necessarily an interview. We're going to be talking about the greatest creatures and monsters in the genre of all time. And I'm really excited, because I have my friend here who's been busting my balls. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Steve.
I'm Steve Johnson, and all you need to know is I made Slimer. Can we move on now? Because that's all I want to hear. I made Slimer. I do special makeup effects. I've done 200 movies. All of the favorite rock videos you've seen, theme park animatronics, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So yeah, come on, Google me. I don't need to introduce myself. Google me, Steve fucking Johnson. Here we go. Artist extraordinaire.
All right. So again, we were talking about the greatest creatures. Sorry. The greatest creatures and monsters of all time. Okay. There's so many to choose from. We want to go through like a quick list here of the modern ones, a little bit of the classic ones. I'm sure Steve's got a couple in his arsenal that are from like different eras. Steve, you want to start us off as far as your first pick for the
I do. Well, I didn't know we were going to be so structured, but because this conversation could go on for hours and hours and hours, and I think we could have the entire discussion about my all-time favorite movie and literary creation / monster, which is Mr. Hyde / Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Absolutely, hands down, my all favorite. And what's interesting about that is when people ask me what my favorite movie is, I'm like, go fuck yourself, because it's like, give me a genre, because there's too many favorites. It's like, what's my favorite comedy? What's my favorite science fiction? What's my favorite this or that? But I do have a favorite horror creation, and it comes from the mind of Robert Louis Stevenson, a book that was written a little bit over 100 years ago called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And the reason I like that is, I've been obsessed with it since I was 6 years old. Since I read the original, it's not even a novel, it's a novella. It's like 30 pages.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons I love that character so much and that book so much. And first and foremost, it's the horror that we are as men, right? And clearly you understand this, Rob.
Wow. He's not a difficult guest at all, guys. Don't worry.
You just Mr. Hyde'd me right before we went on on camera here. So no, the thing about that is that it really does like all true horror, all true stories, whether they be films or books, the horror is what's inside of you, actually. And so Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is my favorite all-time horror character, because it's really about you being afraid of yourself. Dr. Jekyll in The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the original story by Robert Louis Stevenson, was a very mild-mannered doctor who was looking for a serum, a potion that would, kind of let him be a little bit more friendly, a little bit more out there, a little bit, like we all feel. You go to a party, you don't want to just say, hey, so, everybody's kind of got this, all these insecurities. So what Dr. Jekyll was trying to do was create a potion that would allow him to be the best he could be. And what he found, unfortunately, is that it turned him into a monster. And, that just strikes so close to home to me, because something that I don't think a lot of people know is that Robert Louis Stevenson, 100 or so years ago, cocaine, and it always goes back to cocaine with me, but 100 or so years ago, cocaine, no, listen to me, 100 or so years ago, cocaine was legal and it was considered medicinal. And so a lot of the Sherlock Holmes stories, I mean, if you read the 17% Solution, Sherlock is sitting there shooting up pure cocaine so that it gets his mind going a lot faster, and so he can look through the maze of everything that could possibly happen and find his way to the end. He did it through cocaine. Sigmund Freud, same fucking thing. This was legal back then. So Robert Louis Stevenson was a cocaine guy. And so one fateful week, a little over 100 years ago, he got himself, I don't think they called them 8 balls back then, but he got a shitload of cocaine. And he did. This is true. This is documented.
Would you care to try?
So, and he locked himself in his chamber on the 3rd floor. And I've actually visited in reverence to this man. I visited the place where he actually wrote the story in London. And he locked himself in his bedroom chamber. He lit a fire. And in 18 hours, he wrote what we now know as the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. And he just poured it out, snorting cocaine, going crazy, going, hey, what would it take for me as a mild-mannered, very shy person to break out of my shell, to be the best I can be, to go, you know, be with women the way I want to be, and to go be the best person I can be. And he imagined in the book, in the novella, there would be a potion that would do this. And that he's truly, absolutely talking about cocaine. So he locked himself in his chamber for 3 days. He wrote this story. And then he obviously crashed, because if anybody out there has done a lot of meth or coke, you have to, you know, what comes up comes down. So he crashed. No. And so he woke up. This is a good story. He woke up and he goes, he looks at his story, he rifles through it, and he threw it into the embers on the fireplace and burned it. Because he's like, this is just not good. This is terrible. This is awful. And there were no copies back then, no cloud to keep copies of this stuff. And so he tore the story up and he went downstairs. He staggered downstairs, and his wife said, what have you been doing for 4 days up there? And he goes, well, I wrote the story. And he told her what it was. And she demanded that he go back up. Once he recovered from his cocaine binge, that he go back up and, in a sober state of mind, rewrite the story. And that's exactly what became of The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And if you look at it, listen, I don't know, you guys, if you do cocaine, guess what? It relieves inhibitions. It makes you very overtly sexual. So hence the going out and murdering hookers, right? I mean, I hope I've never murdered a hooker on a cocaine binge, but I can't be completely 100% sure. But that's what that story is about. And I'll tell you something actually even more interesting. Hammer did a film with Christopher Lee. Have you seen the movie I, Monster?
Yes.
With Christopher Lee? They don't even try to hide it. Christopher Lee is literally injecting pure cocaine into his veins, and he becomes Mr. Hyde. It's true. I don't understand why people don't really get that. So this is my favorite movie monster of all times. And from the time I was probably around 10 or 11 or 12, I started making my own Mr. Hyde movies. And at that point, you know, I didn't even have these deep, dark desires, right? But I knew that there was something inherently powerful about this story and true about this story. So I started doing my own Mr. Hyde movies and doing my own Mr. Hyde makeups. And strangely enough, they were terrible. They were awful. They were just Dick Smith, latex on the face, horrible beards, and like suddenly I'm a 12-year-old Mr. Hyde. I mean, who's going to be afraid of that, right?
Right.
But ultimately and strangely, I ended up doing what I think is one of the coolest and most outrageous Mr. Hyde characters ever, which was done for Steve Norrington's Bldg of Extraordinary Gentlemen, which is a pretty cool Mr. Hyde.
Oh, wow. You think so?
Well, what do you think? You don't like that one?
I don't agree at all. No.
You don't like what we did for Steve's movie?
Actually, I don't know, man.
Is it the movie you don't like, or the Mr. Hyde character?
I didn't like the movie. I didn't care for the movie.
And well, don't blame me for that. Blame Norrington. We're talking about Mr. fucking Hyde here.
Hang on. I actually have a story about that. So basically, I was in A League of Extraordinary Gentlemen at a theater. It was probably about, like, I don't know, how long ago was that? Like 20 years or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, right? Yeah, I did not have a good time. Now, not saying that your work wasn't good. Just saying the movie was, man, like if there was like tires in that mud, man, you just wouldn't be able to get it out. It was just so muddy, that script.
Well, were you a fan of the graphic novel? Is that what it was?
Was I a fan of the graphic novel?
Yeah.
Not really. No, not.
So you
wasn't
didn't
really
even
my
know what
thing.
you're getting into when you came in there. Well, the interesting thing about the Mr. Hyde depiction in that, and all of the characters, I mean, it's got all the classics. It's got the Invisible Man. It's got Mina Harker from the original Bram Stoker Dracula. It's got everything. But the interesting thing about it is that it's kind of a new take on stuff. And that Mr. Hyde is not just a guy wearing latex on his cheeks and a little bit of a beard. It's a huge, outrageous suit that costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you know, there have been so many variations.
Be sure to pick up Volume 1 of Rubberhead to find out about that. By the way, there you go.
Is it in Volume 1 or is it in Volume 2?
It's Volume 1. Yes, I have it on my shelf, of course.
Well, unfortunately, Volume 1 sold out at this point. But in any case, there have been so many iterations of Mr. Hyde. What's your favorite?
My favorite of Mr. Hyde. Oh wow, man! You know what? There's so many different interpretations, but you're gonna have to get back to me on that one. There's quite a few that I like very much, but like, Dr. Jekyll wasn't necessarily. Listen, I would even say that Russell Crowe brought something cool to the role for that horrible mummy movie that Tom Cruise did. It was just like they just couldn't get that idea together. You know what I mean? But he was definitely a good interpretation, I thought, personally. Like, if they just took him and put him in his own film, he'd probably be a good one, too. But, like I said, you're going to have to get back to me on that one.
Yeah, well, I mean, there have been so many. I mean, there was the silent one with Spencer Tracy, who virtually relied on no makeup at all, which really is more like the original story. And then I think maybe, well, it's a tie maybe. My two favorite Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde makeups are the one Dick Smith did on Jack Palance for a TV movie that was done in the early 70s.
Right.
The reason I really like that one is because Jack Palance has a very interesting satyr-like face, very strong features, very strong skeletal face. And so Dick had a blank canvas to work with. And so what he did actually, really fascinating, this is why Dick Smith is such a genius, is he did the makeup on Dr. Jekyll, not on Mr. Hyde. He made Jack Palance look like a very unassuming, very nervous, very much like you, Rob. Very psychotic. And then he just took the makeup off him. But the other one is the Frederick March. You gotta know about makeup. The Frederick March one is incredible makeup with a big teeth. He's more like a Cro-Magnon. Incredible. So yeah, the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, my all-time favorite movie monster.
All right. Okay. So after the cocaine talk and the heroin talk and all that, I think I'm going to...
We didn't talk about heroin. Yeah.
Well, you know, it's a good thing this isn't a kid's show, huh? All right. So... So I'm actually going to go against the grain of Dr. Jekyll and the 20-minute dissertation you guys received.
You asked me what my favorite monster was.
No, it was wonderful. It was a wonderful dissertation. I felt like I was in school, like I was actually like maybe at UCLA or something. So you should probably look into teaching. I'm going to go with something like a little modern to start with. And I think probably one of the more unique monsters, in my opinion, was the creature that they built for A Quiet Place. I thought that, you know, have you seen that movie?
Absolutely, but I don't think they actually created a physical creature, did they?
I don't. Well, I think it was a digital creature. But what I'm saying is, like,
correct me if I'm wrong.
The design of it is what I'm talking about was unique. Like the you know, like that's what I'm talking about. Like
I think if you know, there were two movies that came out on Netflix almost exactly the same time. One was A Quiet Place, where you can't make a noise. The other one was where you can't look Sandra Bullock, you can't see it. But I think in both films, you never see the creature, right?
No. The one that Krasinski directed, that it helped with the script. You know, from an old script that he actually like kind of helped doctor. They do show the creature at the end of the movie. You see it. Yeah, you do see it kind of running around. It's got these really spindly, like almost spider legs.
Oh, that's right. The digital thing. I blank out when it's digital. It might be wrong.
But you've been fucking with the digital app all day, the Face app or whatever.
I have, and as a matter of fact, when we had all these technical difficulties, I'm like, well, fuck it, I'm going to go back on Face app, and Let me tell you something about that. For those of you that don't know, the listeners that don't know what this is, it just came out, this app came out like a week ago, and now it's on fire. It is the single most greatest facial youthening, aging, adding a beard, changing eyes, changing hair color, whatever app ever created. It's free for 7 days. I think then for the pro, it's $19 a year. But oh my God, let me tell you what's going to happen overnight. What that app is going to do overnight, what that app is going to do is it is going to vault the design process for creatures in movies forward by magnitudes overnight. Because now you can just take a quickly hand sketched picture and put it into this app, and suddenly you've got an old version or a young version or whatever you want, and it's photo fucking realistic. And let me tell you the next step. The next step is going to be, yeah, right now it's a still photo and it's so photorealistic, but the next thing you know, it'll be moving, and then everybody's out of a job, right? And everybody's now saying, because I went crazy, I found this app, and I've known about it for a few days, but I learned how to use it today. And everybody's saying, well, they're taking all your facial data for facial recognition, so you'll never be able to, like, move about this planet again incognito. Well, guess what? When you started carrying a phone around in your pocket 20 years ago, you lost that right anyway. You know, so who cares at this point? I mean, Facebook alone does that. So I'm just having fun with it. But it's truly astounding. Did you see some of the stuff I did today? And the fact is, it happens real quick, like this.
So is that your real feeling on that? That you think once something like that takes off, which it already is, like you think it's over as far as practical effects?
I've been thinking that for years. I'm way ahead of my time. However, the fact is, at this point, makeup effects are more popular than ever. And the main reason is because there's more need for content than ever. How many studios do you have now? Back in 30 years ago, we had 3 customers to sell to. It was Warner Brothers, Universal, and whoever else. But now there's Netflix and there's HBO and there's all of these things. So and all of the streaming stuff. There's a lot more need for weird stuff to happen in movies and television shows right now. But
right.
I'm just saying, I can see the future, and I've been unfortunately a little bit too far ahead of my time, because I thought in 2006 it was all over. And look, I've got egg on my face now because the business is actually stronger than ever. But I'm telling you something. This app that just came out, I saw a Cyclops 30 years ago.
Oh, we're getting back into creatures now? Awesome.
We can talk about creatures if you want, or we can talk about the future of entertainment. It's the same thing.
No, let's do that, man. We just went completely off the rails, guys. It's totally fine.
No. But I sculpted this Cyclops, 20, 30 years ago, and I put it into this app, and I aged it, and it turned out to be a photorealistic example of what that could have been if I were a much better sculptor. So now, in 2019, I could just do a really quick clay sketch, not even bother to finish it, to get the general ideas, the general forms down there, take a picture of it, put it in this app, age it, and suddenly use that as a model for my own reference and have a much, much, much better creature. Because let's not even talk about how it works with age makeup. I mean, age makeup is amazing with all of our new materials. With HD, we've had to expand into translucent materials and new techniques to keep up with that. But now we can design these things in 2 seconds, and we can say, okay, I'd like it to be 10 years younger, or okay, I'd like it to be 100 years older. And then you push a button, and there's your reference to do it.
You're not going to need a Dick Smith type anymore because you have this particular program.
You've still got to do the art. I mean, what happens is, the techniques are only ever as good as the artist that's using the machine, right?
Right.
So I look at a lot of people using this face app thing right now, and no offense anyone, but some people just don't know how to use it. You've got to start. It's only ever as good as your source material. So you've got to start out with a really good photograph, and then you've got to know how to tweak it. And it's not really that hard. But let me tell you something. 30 years ago, when I sculpted the Cyclops, if I would have had this program available, it would have been a much, much, much better Cyclops. So what I'm saying is that overnight, design is going to just go crazy because of this one app that came out a week ago. It's going to get so much better in quantum leaps. And then where do we go,
Yeah. Well, you were mentioning before that you thought there was a good, this is a conversation we had a long time ago where you mentioned there was a good blending there of, like, even though there's a fear of losing the practical effects situation at that particular time we were talking, you thought there was a good blend of digital and practical. Do you still feel that way, or do you feel like there's just going to be this push over, like, you know, when it comes to what we know from our past and our nostalgia and all that?
It really depends on how you look at it. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Have you seen the new Stranger Things series?
Yeah, love season 3.
Stranger 3. Well, let me tell you something about that. Their whole thing on that show is 80s throwback, right? I mean, it's painfully obvious, right?
Sure.
The music, everything. But on season 1, they tried to do the Demogorgon practically. No offense, Mike Elizalde, because Mike Elizalde did an amazing Demogorgon. Yeah. But what they found is the same thing they found back when Barry Sonnenfeld directed Men in Black 1 with Rick Baker. And, you know, Barry contracts Rick to do the Mikey character. Do you remember the Mikey character?
Yeah.
That thing probably cost $750,000 and ends up being a close-up shot of its back doing this. All the rest of it is digital because they felt that they could get it to change expression better. They felt they could get it to smile more honestly, jump higher, and run faster. Yeah. So, you know, what they did in Stranger Things is they said, what we want to do is we want to give this show the feeling of the 80s, but we're going to do it all digitally. So they tried on season 1, but they had to replace, I wouldn't say replace, but augment Mike Elizalde's work with the Demogorgon digitally. So at some point they decided on season 2, why spend all this money doing a practical digital one anyway? And ultimately by season 3, what they did, which I love, I have to say, I'm on the opposition side here, is they decided to create all of the creature effects digitally, but make them look like they were done practically. And therefore, it feels like the 80s, but it was cheaper and quicker, and I have to say better. Because it looks like it was done practically, except it's better. And it was just cheaper and quicker, and which is totally fucking tragic. And everybody keeps saying, well, you know what? We'll never be able to do an age makeup digitally. We'll never be able to do a vampire makeup digitally. But look at this app. Look at this app. And I've had people go on just today, since I've been playing with this app, and say, well, yeah, try to make it move. And I'm like, okay, we'll do that tomorrow. Because that's how fast technology is leaping forward. It's exponential. Exponential how fast, and we can't even begin to imagine how fast this stuff is going to continue to evolve. And it's you want to talk about the scary movie monsters, there's the scary one, technology.
Yeah. Well, here's the interesting thing, since we're talking about this. Is this something that derived from the program that, say, Disney has right now? Like the way they de-age, say, like Kurt Russell and Robert Downey Jr., did it kind of stem from that, or what?
I honestly don't know. I'm sure a lot of the algorithms are the same, but I really don't know. All I know right now is I've been having a blast fucking with people today. It's so fucking fun.
But doesn't it terrify you at all, though?
Well,
I mean,
a lot
as
of
you're
people
playing
say,
with it, you're going, fuck, this is really good. Like, I may be out of a job tomorrow. Like, that doesn't freak you out a little bit?
I've been out of a job since 2006. What are you talking about?
Well, I know, but what I'm saying is like everybody in the business.
Yeah, well, you know, yeah, but the thing is, you know, you either read the writing on the wall and evolve with it, you know, you adapt or you die. So I don't know, you tell me. I don't know. It just you can't deny that technology is moving so fast that you have to either, you know, if you can't beat them, you join them, right?
What are your feelings on that deepfake thing that's going on right now? Like they did that video the other day where they just superimposed Jim Carrey over Jack Nicholson for those Shining scenes. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I have mixed feelings on that because I can see where that technology might go a little bit nuts, and we've all got to be a little bit more careful about what we believe. I already am very careful about what I believe. I mean, you know, 20 years ago, if you saw a spaceship landing in Washington, D.C., you go, oh my God, a spaceship landed in Washington, D.C. But now you look at it and go, somebody, some kid on his iPad did that in 5 minutes, right? So, yeah. I don't know. I just think we just have to be really careful about what we believe.
Yeah.
Which is really scary because you don't know where that's going. because now you kind of already can't believe anything you see on the internet. And with deepfake happening, my thing about deepfake is at this point, the state of that technology, I don't buy it. And it has nothing to do with the technological aspects of it. You know, if you see a little bit of blur where the hairline's blended, that has nothing to do with it for me. What bugs me about it, if you take a look at Jim Carrey being replaced by, or Jim Carrey replacing Jack Nicholson in The Shining,
Yeah.
it's just still Jack Nicholson's performance, and it's Jack Nicholson's hairline, trademark hairline. So it's really still very, 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 very difficult for me to see Jim Carrey in that. Same thing when Bill Murray replaces the Full Metal Jacket thing. You seen that one?
I have not seen that one, no.
Yeah, it's like, it's so close to the original because the performance of the original actor is there. The only time it really works for me is when they replace a man with a woman. Have you seen?
I have seen that. You know what the terrifying thing about that?
This last thing
go ahead.
ruined my punchline. Have you seen Mike Tyson replacing Oprah Winfrey? That one kills me. It's so goddamn funny. And that one, you're like, okay, I get it. That's really Mike Tyson. Because Oprah would never behave that way.
So here's the problem with that deepfake stuff for me. I know there's already been, you know, like we've got this, we're getting into some weird shit here, guys, so forgive us. But, you know, you've got these incel guys that can't find a date for whatever reason. They have no fucking personality, can't pick up a girl, they don't think they're attractive enough, treat girls like shit, whatever it is. The problem with that deepfake shit is now you can superimpose that girl that you couldn't get onto a video and just like have your way with her however you want it. And then
it's all over porn. I mean, porn always drives every technological advancement. And if you look deeply into, not that I do, I've heard this though. If you go to porn, if you go to Pornhub and type in deepfake, you can fuck all of your favorite movie stars right there, like that. Yeah, it's already happening.
Okay, so I mean. But that's terrifying though, that a woman could just basically like go through like an assault through this deepfake shit. That's terrifying. And also,
it's not an assault, it's fake.
Well, I know, but I'm saying
It's
like if you put it out there to say like, you know, because this is something that's actually happened. If you take a deepfake video of that girl and you know, like you put her in that video and then you send it to her work, like her boss or fucking coworkers and all that other shit, you wouldn't even know that it was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but look what's happening. I mean, unless you're completely out of the loop, you're going to have to start really taking a careful look at what's real and what's not, as you already should be with what you know. So if somebody sends that tomorrow, the first, to someone who's a little bit enlightened, a little bit in touch, the first thing they're going to think is this real or not?
Right. That's true. That's true too, I guess. It's just a terrifying, like that stuff terrifies the shit out of me. I won't use FaceApp personally. I tried those,
well, then you should throw your cell phone away.
Huh?
And you should get off Facebook and you should throw your cell phone away and go live in a cave then, because
I need it.
It's too late. It's too late. You've already sacrificed everything. 1984 happened 35 years ago.
Yeah, you're right about that. You're right about that. Yeah.
And we welcomed it with open arms. And we said, make it faster and quicker and now. I don't even know if I'm really talking to you now. I mean, that's what's going to ultimately happen. It is. It's like you FaceTime your girlfriend, you won't know if it's her or somebody else. Guaranteed.
Yeah. Has that happened? Do you know?
I don't know, but it's possible.
Oh my God. Well, it's just like, you know, when everybody was did you try that? Did you turn yourself into a woman when that whole craze went on? Like, was it like a month and a half ago or something?
No, surprisingly, I have not turned myself into a woman yet.
You know what I'm talking about, right? Those fucking...
Of course. Those filters where you can do it in real time. It's hysterical. People that are good at it do a really good job.
Yeah.
Do you know William Butler, director friend of mine? You know William?
Yeah, I know William Butler. I don't know him, but I know of him, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a character where he puts a filter on and it works in real time, and it's not just a photograph, it's actually video. And he plays this character, and it's so goddamn funny. It's like, I just, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely absurd. I thought we were supposed to be talking about our favorite monsters. Can I tell you? Can we get back to that?
Fuck you, Steve. Seriously, like you did this to me.
No, but there's so many to talk about. I mean, devils, demons. That's a whole other show. But when one sells oneself,
How many sheets to the wind are you right now?
not really. No, it's only
No.
six. No. But when one's in all of the stories, I had to check the time. When one sells one's soul to the devil, that's the worst decision you could ever make. To say, okay, I want to fuck this girl, or I want to get all this money, I'll sell my eternal soul to the devil. No, you know what I mean? The worst decision you can ever make. That's a horrifying story. And there's tons of them. That's a really good one. The whole concept of aliens alone, we don't even know what aliens are. We can't even begin to imagine. We can, because they could be 400,000 years more advanced than us, and we wouldn't even know if they're here right now. There's just so many things that scare me. But if we want to talk about actual movies, I'll tell you one that scared me.
Well, hang on. I want to ask you a question about that since we got off the rails again. Do you think that, this whole thing with the whole craze with the memes and shit for Area 51, we're going to storm Area 51 and all that stuff. Do you think that in some way the Pentagon actually blinked when it came to, like this whole staring contest that's been going on between people that are probably just fucking around? And they said, you know what, if you try to come on here, we'll shoot you on sight. Do you think they blinked a little bit? Do you think they proved to us that there's something in Area 51? Because I absolutely think so, 100%.
I don't. I couldn't disagree more, because don't you think with all that government firepower and backup, they could just move the aliens somewhere else? I mean, 500,000 people are going to storm the gates of this huge desert.
No, it's 1,530,000 now.
Whatever it is. Whatever. Is it really? They're not going there. They're not going there. They're definitely not.
Of course not.
No, that's just silly.
They're just going to storm Area 51 like Braveheart? No, I don't think that's going to happen.
No, but it's a funny source for memes.
It's great. It's fucking great. But I'm just
saying,
saying,
going back to aliens, I mean, if you let me just ask you a question. If you were asleep in your bedroom at night, tonight, let's say,
okay,
and suddenly your bedroom was flooded with white blue light, and the whole room started shaking, and you woke up and you were totally paralyzed, and suddenly there was one of those very typical communion type Whitley Strieber aliens with the almond eyes and the big oversized head, standing at the foot of your bed with the slender arms, but it was really there and it wasn't a movie, would that not give you a heart attack? Now that's scary. Something that
of course,
on this planet.
Of course, like that was something that Tommy Lee Jones said in Men in Black, and I know that's a film, but he made a great point. He was like, we cannot allow people to know this because that humans are paranoid. You know what I mean? Like breaking a fourth wall like that, as far as our existence, like something we've never seen before, I think it would just drive you fucking mad, like an H.P. Lovecraft story. As soon as you saw it in front of you.
I totally agree, because we're just not capable of processing it, because it's just too far beyond. It's like you can look on the closest place to alien life on our planet is deep, deep sea life. And that is so alien. How do we, we keep looking for exoplanets, and we found something like 13,000 of them so far. Every day we get another 100 exoplanets just within our own galaxy. But we're looking like idiots, fucking morons, for planets that are Earth-like. That are in the inhabitable zone around the sun and that have, rocky surfaces with water. But who knows what other type of life is out there, and whether it's extra-dimensional or intradimensional. We have no fucking idea. So like morons, we're looking for another Earth. And there's plenty of them out there. There's no doubt about that. We found it. We proved it. But who knows? Who knows? Let's just say, let me just tell you something. This galaxy, do you know how old the universe is? What is it? 4 billion years, something like that?
Your guess is as good as mine, man. This is a fucking horror show. I have no idea.
Well, it's about 4 billion years old, the universe. We've been able to track it, but Earth is not even remotely that old. So what happened before Earth? Where was life before then? It's just so weird. So if there is indeed, which I truly believe there is, life out there, inexplicable life, it could very easily be hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than us, and that's scary. Because think about it this way. If you just say you're laying by your swimming pool someday, and there's an ant colony walking next to you, and you put your finger out, and you let an ant crawl on your finger, and you go, "Hey, Mr. Ant, how are you?" That ant will feel your breath as a hurricane force. Will never be able to understand how you're trying to communicate it with it, whether you're a horrible influence or a benign influence, because we are so much more in our minds evolved than them. That's probably the same thing with civilizations that are indeed out there. I'm quite certain of it, that are hundreds of thousands of years more advanced than us. So why, in the name of God, would they come down to Earth in a tin can and say, "Take me to your leader"? Would never do that.
Not this fucking leader.
Well, okay, let's talk about monsters.
All right, go ahead. You're talking about human monsters?
Human monsters, because we've got, let's see, we've got our Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde characters. We've covered that ad nauseum. We've got our vampires, and we know what vampires are all about.
Right.
Vampires are about sex. Vampires are about, the thing about vampires is that whether they like it or not, they're giving something back. They're giving the gift of eternal life, right?
Right.
You know, just to have this kind of pseudo-sexual experience. And so that's kind of okay. I mean, it's definitely misplaced. But the one I can't figure out, and then, you know, what else you got? You got your werewolves, you got your vampires, you got your Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Come on with that.
Well, no, but the one I can't figure, vampires are easy, and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde we've already discussed, but I can't figure the whole werewolf thing out, about, you know, because all of these archetypal monsters have a metaphor. Let me ask you, what's the metaphor behind lycanthropy?
Lycanthropy? Well, basically, I think it's honestly like, you know, that it's like the human condition on the inside, like, you know, like our deeper souls. Like, all of us have the ability to become animalistic at any given point, be it through sex, be it through partying, be it through the lives that you and I have lived, Stephen. Yeah, it's really not hard to get to that level. And I think it honestly, like, that honestly has a lot to do with it. I don't think it has anything to do with the actual, like, animal itself really at all. Yeah, I think you're right. It is a metaphor for humanity.
It's really easy to put your finger on what vampirism is about. It's really easy to put your finger on the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. But it's for me, because, you know, I have these conversations all the time, and I can never figure out, because the third archetype, you know, if you want, you could go on to 100, you could get into fishmen, right? I mean, Shape of Water, Creature from the Black Lagoon. I don't know what that's about. It's also very sexual, though. But I can't figure the.
Okay, let me ask you a question, though. How is that sexual? I never really understood why that was a sexual thing. Because I know there's all these different kicks.
Water, the womb. I mean, that takes us back to being embryonic. I mean, why is that funny? If you look at some of these archetypal shots from the original Creature from Black Lagoon, they're very sexual. It's like an underwater mermaid dance, and that creature wanted to fuck her. There was
100%. Yeah, I agree.
It was slimy fish dick. So why are you even asking this question? Well, let's go back to the werewolf thing, because, you know, when I think of a werewolf, I've worked on all of the biggest werewolf movies, from The Howling to American Werewolf, and even my own with Eric Red and Madman, and so many werewolf movies, it gets boring. But it always, when I think about,
let me put a postscript there for a second for everybody. Steve does not like talking about his career at all.
Are we supposed to be talking about my career?
No, I'm just saying, like, you don't like talking about your career unless it's actually, like, for, like, a certain gain, like your book or something. Like, don't come at him for an interview. It's not going to happen.
I never ever smile unless there's something to promote.
That's right.
So we really got a nice chat going here. So the werewolf thing, what I think about when I think about werewolves is I don't think about The Howling, and I don't think about American Werewolf, and I don't think about Dog Soldiers or any of these other, you know, so many great werewolf creations. I think about the original 1932, I think it was, the Lon Chaney Wolfman.
Yeah.
Wolfman.
Yeah.
Because such classic film. And to me, and I think it's only because I know that Lon Chaney Jr. had a huge problem with drinking. He was an alcoholic.
Yeah.
So when you look at what happens when he transforms into the Wolfman and he goes out and he murders people and he wakes up the next morning and he sees muddy paw prints leading to his bed, he's got to
Sure.
go, oh my God, what did I do last?
Yeah.
And it's like, I've been so drunk.
I've had many nights like that.
Exactly. So I've been so drunk, I've got to check my phone. Who did I call? Who did I text? Go out and see if I ran over somebody, see if there's any blood smear on my car. What did I do last night? I mean, really, that's what the Wolfman is about. It's about Lon Chaney not being able to control his drinking. I really do think that's what about. But I don't think archetypally that's what it really is, because if you go back, a couple of hundred years,
that's where it obviously that's where it derives from, right? But like, what do you think?
You tell me. I'm asking you this.
No, I'm just saying, like, do you think that actually changed, that ideal changed once it evolved? Once we got into like decades and decades of storytelling, with with lycanthropy, do you think that
I don't actually, because if you take a look at the more modern werewolf movies, that has nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
It's more like the Mr. Hyde thing. There's the beast that exists that they transform, but the Mr. Hyde thing is so on the nose, it's absurd. He takes the potion, he goes and fucks and rapes hookers, and but the werewolf thing, the full moon rises and then they go out and kill them. I've never really been able to figure that out. And do you have a comment section? Because I would love to hear what people.
Yeah, if you guys have any ideas about where lycanthropy came from, feel free to leave in the comments when we.
No, and I truly understand. I mean, as this being my business, I've tried to study this, but I can't figure out one specific track. Like, you can easily figure out with Dr. Jekyll. You can easily figure out with vampires. You can easily figure out with zombies too. Zombies, when they're done well, are always a socio-political statement. Always.
Hang on, let's go back. Hold on a second. Let's go back to the werewolf and all that stuff, the vampire bullshit and all that stuff, because I'm gonna lay it down. I'm gonna lay down an idea to you that maybe you've not heard before. Is there a possibility that the original? Okay, so my point would basically be, like, you've got the original story, you've got the Universal movies and stuff like that. There's obviously an allegory to it. Do you honestly feel like that's where the wisdom of, say, a monster movie comes from, and the rest is just kind of like, I don't know, just kind of made up bullshit, pretty much?
No, I actually don't think it comes from the movies. I think the movies come from the original allegory.
Or what I'm saying is like, yeah. Go ahead.
So it's like, okay, well, let's hire Lon Chaney Jr., an alcoholic, and let's make it fit his story.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you look at the original Wolfman right now, that is the story of a raging alcoholic. There's no other way to see it.
Well, Bela Lugosi also had a thirst for something as well, too. So.
He did.
So that, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's where the wisdom, stems from, and then everything else is just, lore and storytelling, mythology, as far as culture is concerned.
Yeah, well, what else have we got? We covered. If we start talking about zombies, we'll go on forever. I think I said my piece on that for now. But oh my God, there's so many. The best zombie movies I've ever seen, because I end up doing a lot of film festivals all around the world. And the best zombie movies I've ever seen come from Korea and Vietnam and Thailand. They just really get it. I saw one. I was at a film festival in France a few years back, and I wish I could remember the name of it, but it was so cool. It was like the most interesting zombie take I've ever seen. And what it was after the zombie apocalypse. So they had found a cure for zombieism.
Mm-hmm.
So all the people that had been eating your brother and your mother and your father suddenly were normal. It's like they had AIDS, a sickness, and they were cured of it. But then they had to reintegrate into society. And so people would say, "You motherfucker, you ate my brother." Yeah. And the guy would say, "Well, no, I didn't. I was sick." It really fascinating. And you could go on for years, as we all have with zombie stories. And I think that's why that thread is so popular these days and continues to be so, because there's so many different ways to look at it. It was a fascinating movie. I wish I could remember it, because it was the integration of all the murderers and the killers and the cannibals.
Yeah.
And then suddenly they found a cure, but then those people that had been infected had to, it's very much like,
Fido?
Even if you look at vampirism, there is a direct correlation, I believe, to AIDS, to any kind of sexually transmitted.
Oh, yeah. 100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. First of all, it starts with sex. Secondly, you're killing them. You're also kind of, in a way, giving them eternal life. It's Utterly fascinating. So my point is, we can talk about vampires and zombies and Mr. Hyde till the end of forever, but we can't figure out the werewolf thing. What the fuck is the deal with the fucking wolf thing?
I honestly think we're on the nose when it comes to that. When it comes to like, you know, alcoholism or drug addiction or any kind of addiction, sex addiction, fucking, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but that connects too strongly to the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, and the werewolf story has been around much longer than the Dr. Jekyll story. It really has. So maybe you're right. Maybe you're making me think. Maybe Robert Louis Stevenson was inspired by lycanthropy to write that.
that's a possibility, yeah.
Because they do kind of connect a little bit.
They do. So what was I going to ask you?
You're going to ask me if I wanted another cocktail?
Yeah, go ahead. Drink.
Way ahead of you.
All right, there you go.
Okay, what's the name of the movie? I'm so senile, you'll have to forgive me. The giant plant that comes to life. What is it?
Little Shop of Horrors?
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yeah.
Greatest movie monster ever.
Really?
Singularly in my mind, yeah.
Which one? The Corman one or the
No, the Lyle Conway, the remake. Yeah, it's just unbelievable. Let's not even get into the thing, but
yeah,
it was done around the same time as the thing, probably in the same year, maybe a year after. But I've never seen animatronics done that well.
Yeah,
they pulled out every trick in the book, and it's so weird that the night I went to see that in the theater, I went home to bed. 84, 85 maybe. I'd already done Ghostbusters, a bunch of huge Big Trouble in Little China, a bunch of the big greatest hits of the 80s. But
which you worked on, by the way.
I did. I couldn't sleep though that night because I kept thinking, oh my God, how did they make that shit happen? Yeah. Even I don't know how, and I'm meant to be somewhat of an expert at this stuff, and I couldn't figure it out. And now, after Cinefx and everything else, I figured it out, and it's just like, buckling down and saying we're going to make this work, and doing it in reverse and speeding up the the footage and all this kind of stuff with these giant plants that can lip sync and fucking sing. To me, that may not be the scariest monster ever made, but I think it's the greatest.
Well, I think wasn't there supposed to be a darker conclusion, a third act to that, where I think it actually succeeded in its plan, and just ate everybody practically. I don't know. I think that was the main idea originally or something, and then they decided, this is a musical.
I don't know. The thing that blows me away about that is that back in the early 80s, mid 80s, people actually had the balls to actually try to accomplish the impossible without sitting at a computer and say, well, we can do anything now. Yeah. And they figured it out. Just like with Rob Bottin's The Thing and John Carpenter, just like I think those are the two greatest effects films of all time, is Little Shop of Horrors and the Carpenter.
Well, it's interesting, like you said, they were both kind of side by side as far as their release dates, right? They were pretty close.
It's back when people said, we're going to do this. We're going to make it happen. We don't know how, but we're just going to fucking figure it out.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this question. I mean, you've got all these, you've got all these different technologies. We were talking about the face apps and all this stuff, but then again, you got somebody say, a streaming service like Netflix is actually resurrecting the fucking Dark Crystal story, and you see the Henson people actually making puppets and stuff like that again. Does that excite you a little bit? That's kind of not a lost art?
Actually, it's beautiful. It's like all my friends got a lot of work out of that. And I think the new stuff, I've been privileged enough to see some of it. I think the new stuff is better than the old stuff.
Oh, wow.
Again, you've got the opportunity now to, take the strings off the puppeteer, to remove the rods digitally and have the wacky things happening right there. So there's a lot more easily available technology right now to do that stuff, still with puppetry, but to remove the puppeteers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is your, as far as I know you watch a lot of stuff probably. So what has been one major modern monster that's really just kind of just captured your imagination? Say Stranger Things, you got the Demogorgon, you've got, all these different things that came out, in the last 5 years or something. Is there anything that really just kind of gripped you, the classics?
As a matter of fact, a Netflix film called, maybe you can help me with this. Is it called Mother or I Am Your Mother? Do you know that one?
Is that the Hilary Swank movie that just came out?
Is she in it?
Is it like a cyber? It's like I haven't seen it yet. I don't know what you're talking
Oh my
like.
God, you're missing out. What it is it's the end of, I don't, spoiler alert, end of humanity, and there's one,
It'll be fine.
there's this one robotic piece of artificial intelligence that is tasked with re-incubating the entire human race, if indeed we were to have a nuclear fallout. And so there's a robot that incubates all of these embryos, and she brings one to life, and she lies to her. The robot lies to her. The robot is her mother. And she goes, well, I don't want to ruin too much, but let me tell you something. I think it's called I Am Your Mother. It's either that or just Mother. It can't
I think it's I Am Mother. Actually, I'm going to look it up.
That's it.
I Am Mother.
Yes. I watched this. This is how desensitized I am to practical effects at this point. I watched this. Yes, I smoked a little marijuana, which I always do in the evenings, but I instantly just assumed that this lead character, this robotic character, was done digitally. And I found out that Weta created it 100% practically. And it's fucking amazing.
Oh, wow.
And it's really, I think, one of the most amazing practical creations I've ever seen. No matter in the past year, but it's just so well done. It's so well done. And it's a great movie. It's really good. I Am Mother, is that the name? Did you
it's called I Am Mother, yes.
I Am Mother. Gotta see it.
So
you should watch it right now, actually. It's that good.
Okay. So basically, do you think that, here's the thing that pisses me off about everything. Like, I'm a huge fan of superhero films and all that stuff, but we live in a world now where everything needs to have an IP, right? Intellectual property. My problem is, or let's say the solution is, in my opinion, these streaming services like Netflix, keeping these things alive, like in all honesty, you know what I mean? Because these mergers are going to continue to happen, and the original stuff isn't going to go to like your Sonys and your, obviously not your Disneys, you know what I mean? So do you think that like Netflix and, you know, all these streaming services like Hulu may be a saving grace for like original creature making and effects and all that stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rabbit hole we could fall down forever.
Yeah.
Until we actually meet Lewis Carroll. Yeah, of course. I mean, all of these with streaming right now, it kind of reminds me of the golden age of cinema that I grew up in, which was in the 70s, where people took chances because movies didn't cost $200 million. So they could spend $1 million on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or they shoot horses, don't they? Some of my most transformative film experiences happened in the 70s when I was young, because the studios were not, you know, gambling $200 million on whether is it going to work or not. They were just like, let's let these artists make movies. It doesn't matter how much money it makes because it doesn't cost us that much to make it. And that was when the cinema, to me, was truly golden, because still all my favorite movies come from the 70s. They all do.
Yeah. So what are your feelings on like, I mean, somebody that actually was, you know, you were there for, you know, the front row seat when it comes to say like Ghostbusters and stuff like that. Do you have any faith in say like Jason Reitman and what he's trying to do right now? To, you know, like,
I do.
What's your feelings on that?
I do, actually, because, you know, there's this entire kind of throwback mentality right now where there's a nostalgia for what I was just talking about. You know, the days when movies were just made to make movies. Yeah. And they didn't have to make $3 billion worldwide to make them actually turn a $100 profit. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I really like what he's doing, and I like this whole. I like what JJ's doing with the new Star Wars movies. I have not seen them.
Do you know what Jason Reitman's doing? You do, don't you, son of a bitch?
Of course. What, you don't? Of course you know what he's doing.
No.
Everybody is doing the new Ghostbusters 3.
No. What I mean is, like, okay, the interesting thing to me is that we gave, like, for one example, we had a Ghostbusters with all females, and everybody lost their fucking minds, man. They're like, horrible, you know, this and that, when we know it really wasn't.
I'm going to say it on the record right now, I liked that movie.
I do too. So my point is, like, recently, it was a picture that came out. It was a still of Ivan, Jason, and this family that nobody knew who the fuck they were, right? Played by McKenna Grace of Annabelle Comes Home. So there we go. We're getting it back into a horror spin. And Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things plays her brother. But nobody knows what the fuck this family has to do with this movie, and nobody bat an eyelash, which is a very odd thing to me. Nobody said, what the fuck is this? Like, what am I looking at? Nothing. You know what I mean? They were just like, to me, it seemed like, they kind of knew, like, from the ground floor, as far as what Jason Reitman was trying to do, say, with Ghostbusters, he was going to bring all those actors that we love back. So whatever.
Well, it would be like when and if, and I hope this happens, Max Landis directing the sequel to American Werewolf.
Okay. Max Landis. Oh, boy.
Oh, you've not heard that? You've not heard that? So there's talk about Max directing a sequel to American Werewolf. The script's written. You're going to have to cut this show into 2 pieces. We've talked way too long, and I need to get back to my Face app because I'm now...
Really?
I'm going to age you. We've talked... What else do you want to talk about? There's no other monsters left to talk about. Give me a category. What other monster?
There's plenty of monsters.
Aliens. We talked about devils. We talked about Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. We talked about the creature from the Black Lagoon. We talked about vampires. We talked about werewolves. There's no other categories. There's none.
For a creative, you're not very creative.
I made notes. Look, I made notes. We've discussed every category of monsters on my notes. We could talk about the Day of the Triffids. The Day of the Triffids. Let's talk about that for a minute.
What?
Day of the Triffids. If we're going to go into plant monsters, that's a whole subgenre. Day of the Triffids. Have you seen the original?
I have not, no.
You've never seen? Okay.
No, I know what it is. I've never seen it.
3 more minutes. What happens is...
3 more minutes. Fuck out of
here. There's a meteor shower, and anyone that sees the actual meteor shower overnight is blinded.
Right.
And what it actually is that it's these comets spattering Earth that are seeding Earth with these carnivorous plants. And what they've done by having people see the meteor shower is it blinds them so the plants can easily eat them because the entire planet's running around blind. What a great concept, right?
Yeah.
Tom Holland from Fright Night, the original Tom, not the Spider-Man Tom Holland. And I worked on a remake. Tom Holland and I worked on a remake of that for years and years and years. We never got it off the ground. But what a great concept, that something that seemingly is so beautiful, incredible, like an aurora borealis meteor shower that everybody wants to go look at, ultimately blinds them and then leaves them prey to the spores that landed on their planet. So the spores can grow into plants, carnivorous plants, and eat them. That's a great story. That's right back up there with the Audrey thing. So I don't know what else you want from me. I've talked to be a bit of a monster there is ad nauseum. There's even I don't know what else.
Okay. Well, I absolutely agree. But I'm gonna get no. There's no point in saying it. Like we all know, Boris Karloff's Frankenstein is like one of the ultimate fucking designs of all time. We all know that. Like
it is. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. That's a good one. That is a good. We didn't discuss that. But he's a zombie, so we kind of did.
Sort of a zombie, not really though.
How is he not really?
No, I mean like, he's reanimated flesh, but I wouldn't necessarily call him a zombie though.
But only because you've never thought about it that way. But
I'm just saying, like he was, he was put together, but once they reignited his brain, he was, there was a humanity there. So like, it's not necessarily.
Think about what we discussed earlier about the metaphor of zombie films about being an outsider. Who is more of an outsider than the Frankenstein monster? Come on. And he is a zombie. He's the world's first famous zombie. He is.
I'll tell you what okay, I'll double up on this one. One of my absolute favorite interpretations of Frankenstein's monster is probably one that nobody'd ever think of, but I don't know if you've seen the show Penny Dreadful. It was one of the most masterful things I've ever seen.
I've heard really good things about it. I have not seen it, actually.
The portrayal of Frankenstein's monster in that movie or in that show was definitely one of the best because, it wasn't necessarily the fact that everything that came out of his mouth was just a poem. Everything that those characters said was just poetry. It was just beautiful, beautiful.
I want to see that. Where is Penny Dreadful available? I'm sure.
That would be Netflix now, I believe.
I don't think so, because I would have binged that shit.
Are you sure?
Yeah. No, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. I'm fairly sure.
Let me ask you this, because one of my favorite new creatures that I've seen recently comes from Stranger Things 3. What did you think of this, the design of the Mind Flayer that they had for that? I thought it was pretty amazing. Did you watch Stranger Things 3?
Yes, we've discussed this. Yes.
Okay, but did you like that creature that they created for this particular season?
No, I didn't like it in broad strokes at all. It was a four-legged spider. I thought it was an easy way out. I thought it was bullshit. I love the way they used it in the film. And I love the close-ups.
No, Mike, go ahead, please.
No, hang on. I love the close-ups because it was doing things we could never have done in the 80s. But as broad general strokes, it was a total cop-out, and it was a useless piece of garbage. Sorry if any of my friends designed it. You know you agree with me. No, it was useless. It was totally useless. I didn't like it.
What was the thing that you hated about it?
I didn't like that design. What did I not like about it? It was too obvious. It was too obvious.
It was too obvious.
Why not get it 16 legs? Why not 32? Because it costs more money. It was absurd. It's absurd.
Was it the actual creation or the storyline, the fact that people would actually like melt into this fucking thing?
No, I love that part. When you see them walking and they fall apart,
yeah,
you could never, ever do that practically. You could try your best and you would never get it that good. And when the little pieces join and back and you see the close-ups of the leg planting and the little things trying to get out, all that stuff was great. But here's the thing about good design. You have to look at good design from a distance. And if it doesn't look good from a distance, it's not a good design. That spider is not a good design. It's not. It's not.
Do you think they just like, do you think they maybe not the idea was to rip from, say, Rob Bottin, but do you think that was like pretty much the intention, obviously, was just this thing creature of some sort?
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of thing in there, but they didn't even come close to.
No, not at all.
They didn't come close to coming close. I mean, all I would just say is that you stand back from something, and if it doesn't look good in a wide shot, you failed. And if that thing failed, it does not look good in a wide shot. Doesn't it?
Yeah. All right, well, we got 10 minutes left, so.
With 10 minutes left. We've been going for 45 minutes. All right, well, I'm going to pour another glass of wine then. I can keep going on. Keep your viewers entertained.
Steve Johnson, everybody. Jesus Christ.
Well, here's the thing. So many people call me all the time, and it was just like, again, when you called me about this, I'm like, all right, this will be fun because I'm trying to experiment because I've got there's a new, based on the Rubberhead book series, there is a new documentary / television series being based on that, where I'll travel the world. I'll be the Anthony Bourdain of effects. And so I thought, well,
I've already got the person that should play you. I've already got it.
Could be me. In any case, I thought, okay, well, let's do that. And that's why I said, let's talk about something specific.
Mark Maron is Steve Johnson.
The great thing about this is nobody said jack shit about Slimer or The Abyss or Big Trouble in China because I'm just so over talking about all that stuff. So I thought we would use this as a testing ground for my new Rubberhead TV show. And this has been great.
Please talk about it.
I just did. No, it's based on my book series. And we're starting, and it's really huge, with a documentary. And we've been shooting for months now, and it's turning out great. We've been shooting all over the world. And they thought in the beginning that it would be a documentary, but now they see that there's so much information that they want to turn it. They want to use the documentary as a pilot for the actual television series. Okay. And so, yeah, so that is clearly big time, hugely in the works, which is really exciting. There's nothing in my life, in my entire life, I've ever wanted to do than to travel the world and be the Anthony Bourdain of special effects. Now, the only problem with the contract, because I've signed my contract with them, is they said, listen, after the, we're going to do this, we're going to budget the first documentary at literally over $1 million, literally, which is bigger than most movies these days, most low budget movies. And we've been shooting on it, and it's looking great. But then we're going to, segue that into a television series. But here's what I had to sign in the contract. They said, at the end of season 3, you have to actually hang yourself to death in a hotel room in France.
Shut the fuck up. Are you serious? You're not serious.
I signed the contract. I have to. I have no choice. What was I supposed to do?
All right. Well, that's my vote for you, man. Watch Glow. Tell me that's not fucking Steve Johnson. Mark Maron for Steve Johnson. If Steve can't act on his own and hang himself, that's the dude to play you. I'll tell you right now. That's my pick. Anyway.
I'm perfectly happy to hang myself, but we got to get 3 seasons in.
3 seasons in, and then you kill yourself.
In France, yes.
Because they hate you that much.
No, but at this point, we're going to actually film it. Okay, that's enough.
All right,
that's
this
enough.
is something we should talk about. Like,
okay, what if we say we got a great 3 episodes and you let me off the phone?
Steve, listen, we went off the rails a little bit. It was awesome. You know I love you, man. Thank you so much for doing this. Guys, this was a treat. So, like, if you, if you love Steve, like you said, the Rubberhead book is gone now. It's sold out.
Rubberhead Volume 1 is sold out. We're going to reprint it. There's a whole new thing on that, but we'll discuss it next time. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Steve will leave his number so you guys can call him before he
Yeah,
goes.
exactly. In the middle of the night, wake me up. We'll discuss it. We'll discuss the status of Rubberhead Volume 2 at 4 a.m.
I love you, brother, man. Thank you so much. Hey, listen, guys, that's it for the dungeon. Thank you, Steve. Please join us next week, and I'll scare you later. Talk to you soon. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Rob. Go fuck yourself, all right?
Yeah, I love you, man. Fuck you.
All right. Bye.